Okay, there's Len. It's connecting to audio. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be a few minutes here trying to get all the connections established. You're muted still, Len.
Mr. Chairman, do you know Mr. Russell's phone number? Is he there?
Mm,
See an RT, and then I see a phone number at the top. Or a MacBook Pro.
Yeah, I don't. Let me see. I don't think I.
We could ask him to raise his hand, I guess.
I don't think he would come in on his phone.
True.
I don't have it.
So I guess if he is there, if Mr. Russell is there, if you could raise your hand, we can bring you in as a member. Nope, there, he's under you again.
Yeah.
How did that happen? He must have gone in through, I don't know how that happened.
That might be all right. Let's try it. Did you get him?
Let him in. Is he there? Yeah, he's there.
Yep, he's here. So- Can Leonard, can you talk? You're
No, we
still-
can't hear him.
Still muted.
Mr. Russell, could you try talking, please?
Hello, hello.
Hello. I think
Hello.
that's working, Joe. I don't hear echoes.
Yeah, it was working.
Okay,
But we
So we
still
just
need
have
to get Mr. Gyllenhaal in.
so Lynn, why don't you go out and come in as just an attendee? And then we'll bring you in the same way as a panelist.
Mr. Russell will need to turn his camera on to vote as well.
Yep.
Let's make sure that's working. There he goes.
He's there.
Perfect.
There is an attendee with the hand up.
Yeah.
Not sure. Might.
No, hand's gone. For the people in the audience, we're still struggling to make full connections with voice and video.
Oh,
with all
He
the
was,
members.
we had him for a
Over there.
second there. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. He was, whatever he did, it worked for a second. He was on.
Len,
Yeah,
but he's muted now still.
it wasn't muted. It went unmuted and then it came back muted again. So I don't know what he just did.
Len, is your setup showing you an unmute button or not at all? You'd have to, again, we can't hear you, but if you nod or whatever. It needs to click on that microphone or the unmute. Be up in the right corner. It would ask, you can mute, unmute up there on the right. He's gone off of my screen. If he comes in on the other, we should be able to bring him across.
There's a phone number, maybe he
There's a
can call
phone number
in.
with a hand up. Let's see if that might be him.
Hello? That's muted too. Nope, not muted. 3519? Anybody there?
Yes, I'm Patricia Francis, and I did want to make a statement regarding the Petersons.
Yeah, that'll be a
proposal.
little while, ma'am.
Okay,
Until that hearing's being held, and we'll bring you in. So
okay.
you can raise your hand later. Yep, thanks. Horace is raising his hand, but no sense bringing them in yet until we get all our members established. Folks, you got to hang on. We're trying to make connection. If we don't,
Connecting to audio.
there's going to be a problem.
Mr. Gyllenhaal, can you hear us now? Do I need to turn the volume up?
Do you think it's unmuted now? Is it?
It looks like it's unmuted now to me. That's why I said maybe he just needs to turn the volume up.
Yeah, Len, maybe try, is your volume, it looks like you're unmuted now, but we can't hear anything. Maybe the computer volume needs to go up. Oh, you mean IT, Allison?
Yes. Oh,
Yeah. You have Len's number, right?
yeah, I'm sure I do. All right. Hold on. I'm going to mute myself for a minute.
For the public, bear with us. We're still trying to make connections. IT's working with us. And I really want to try to get this hearing going, because we certainly don't want to have to continue everything again. So hang in there, folks. Thank you. think he left.
I'm not sure, but did he head over to Mr. Russell's house? Don't they live together?
Yeah,
Yeah,
a couple
on the
doors
same
down, yeah.
He
looked
walked
like he went
outside.
out the- Looked like he went out the door.
Yeah, there we
Yeah,
are.
here he
He's-
comes.
Yes, he's there. He's there with him.
Yeah, but we can't. Can we be on one screen?
I don't know. Long as we see them while they vote, we should be okay. What other difference would it make?
Okay, if, Rob, if you can unmute. And so we can talk with you and Len. See how that's gonna sound.
How's that
Can we hear you? Go ahead, talk.
work? I don't see me. Hello. Necessity
either of you
is the mother of invention.
Yeah, but it's not working. It's
Yeah.
back to that echo.
Are you muted?
No, you're not muted. but
Mute.
Can
Okay.
Don't
you
mute.
mute and then speak through the phone? Like Simon
I'm gonna
does?
go to the phone. Yeah, I'm gonna try. I don't see the number. I know how I can get it.
Can you hear me? I'll tell you the number.
I don't know why we're having this issue.
Yes.
Yes.
It is 1-929-205-205.
929 205.
6099.
What was that again?
60
6.
and then 99.
99.
And you're gonna have to put in the web ID. When they ask for that, let me know.
Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
You have the meeting
897.
ID on here.
Have you got it?
We're telling you it.
Number. Meeting ID followed by pound.
897
5603.
8, 7.
5603
3959.
3955.
9 at the end. 3959.
Doesn't work. Via phone. Join via phone.
Yep.
1-626-6799.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
Okay.
You have not entered any number. Please enter meeting ID followed by pound.
897.
Nelson, hear us?
897.
Entered any. Re-enter meeting.
897
5603.
Entered. Meeting ID.
5603.
3959.
Again. Have to start again. Take the number.
From the beginning? I'm gonna text you the number.
Yes. That'd make it a lot easier. having trouble getting, I didn't have this issue before. Hello,
Hi, can you write down the number?
okay,
897 5603
5, 6, 0,
Allison, mute.
3959
5,
and
9.
then pound at the
And then
end.
pound at the end.
Okay, all
Okay,
right, oh, hang up now
Hang up.
yeah, I guess.
and then try it. Okay, bye.
Try it. Okay. Recording in progress.
Shut off the volume on your computer.
Hello.
I was supposed to, mute.
Yeah, mute the computer, that's what I mean. Mute the computer. Five, 851. I don't see his number there to pull him in. Is he- And there's a,
Well, he,
he should just be able to hear the meeting, right?
right, but is he,
Speaking to his phone.
that 3519 is not him. So I don't see him on the panelist side. I don't see him on either side.
So if we're live, when he calls in, he should just be able to hear us now. He can't hear us? I'm
Just
assuming.
raise your hand and say.
We can hear you.
Okay,
Glenn, you can hear
And
us
I
through
can
the
see
phone.
on Rob's. Yes,
Yes.
Okay. And you can be on Rob's camera.
yes,
Okay. So you can set the phone down. You both can talk into that and you can see through Rob's camera. We have you both there.
yes.
All right, so let's, we are live and we're going to try to start. Good evening, ladies and
Sorry for-
gentlemen, and welcome to the Gloucester, City of Gloucester Zoning Board of Appeals remote Zoom meeting of March 10th, 2022. Consistent to Section 20 of Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation. The public may not physically attend the meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time. This meeting is recorded by video and audio in accordance with state open meeting law, consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation. All votes taken by the Zoning Board of Appeals during this and future remote meetings will be by roll call vote. If you are calling in on a phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you're watching on a computer or device, there's a raise hand button that you can tap or press to request to speak. Please use either of these options if you'd like to speak. I'd like to introduce the members of the board. My name is Joe Parisi. I'm the chairman. Peter Canavo is present. Len Gillenhall is present, and Rob Russell. We have 4 members present, and consider that a quorum present. For the record, this meeting is Zoom meeting 897-5603-3959. Now, we're going to dispense with the minutes because I know everybody didn't have a chance to get them. So we'll take up that at the next hearing. One other thing I'd like to do out of order is the extension request for 65 to 73 Essex Avenue. Is Holly Racer on? Can we bring him in?
There's someone standing in for him, so I'm gonna bring in Mike Tierney.
Mike Tanny, if you could come in, we'll bring you in. Mike, are you there?
Oh, jeez.
Did he pull in?
Yep.
Mike?
Having problems tonight. Usually goes pretty smoothly.
Yeah, it's real easy when we're all together.
Yeah.
Allison, do you have to allow him to talk?
I'm
thought
bringing you in as a panelist, but nothing's happening.
Yeah,
Can you bring
Could
him
you
in as a panel? Oh, here we go.
here he is
Oh, no, he
again.
raised his hand again, so now he moved
Thank-
on me. Bill, can you bring him in? Because my computer's not doing it.
All right, I
Okay,
brought him in.
He
to allow
has
to
permission to
talk.
talk though.
Can you hear
Mike?
me?
I
Yes,
can now,
we can.
yes. Name and address for the record, please.
Yes, sir. Good evening. My name is Mike Tierney. I'm VP of Development for Hafner's and Energy North Group. Our address is 2 International Way in Lawrence, Massachusetts.
Thank you. We received your letter requesting a continuance, a 6-month continuance of the variance. Anything I'm not sure everyone is familiar. I've read in the paper that you're getting close and other permits have come in line. If you could just touch on that and then we'll deal with it.
Yes, sir. As you know, we've been going through an extensive permitting process. We're almost at the finish line. The biggest thing that's hanging out there right now is the Chapter 91 permit via the Massachusetts DEP. Chapter 91, for those that might not know, has to deal with title land and waterways. About 3,200 square feet of our development will include the title land. And we're just about at the finish line. We anticipate having that approval probably around May 1st. And then the only other piece that's outstanding is the actual Mass DOT permit, which typically they won't issue until we have a contractor in place. And we don't have that. We're not that far yet. So we're hoping to have all approvals and all permits by June 1st. And we'd like to get under construction towards the end of the summer season, most likely late August. So we are requesting a 6-month extension that would get us out to September 4th, which would be enough for us to get everything we need and get the show on the road.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
There's no testimony required. I think it's a routine motion to grant a 6-month extension to September 4th.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record.
Yep.
I believe the actual variances have expired on the 4th. However, this was received by the city prior to that date, so I just want to clarify that it is properly in front of the board today.
Okay. So I'll make a motion that we allow a continuance of the variance to September 4th. Need a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Roll call vote.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
Mr. Gyllenhaal,
Yes.
Mr. Russell,
Yes.
and Mr. Parisi.
Yes. I've heard our decision, Mr. Tierney, is favorable. You'll be granted a 6-month extension. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Okay, now we're going to move into our continued hearings. The first is the petition of Anna Gelino seeking a special permit under 2.3.1, section 6, 2 to 3, change of use, and a special permit under 4.1.2 to allow a lesser number of off-street parking, to allow conversion of a two-family to a three-family at 21 Wells Street. Attorney Favazza. Now, we had continued this hearing. Everyone that needed to has listened to it, listened to the hearing on tape. Is that true? Mr. Gyllenhaal,
Yes.
Mr. Russell,
Yes.
you listened to it?
Yes.
Okay. So we have 4 members. And we had asked, remember to ask for continuance so we could take another look at the parking. And I'll open it back up to Attorney Favazza. Anything else, Ed?
Sure. So just for the record, Joel Favazza, Legal Solutions, 123 Main Street, here on behalf of Anna Gelino, the property owner. So I'm just hoping that you'll have a chance to go out there and get a better understanding as to what we're talking about when it came.
Oh, you just started. Yeah.
That's all. Keep going.
All right, go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
Let me just slide up so we can just one more time, make sure everyone understands what we're talking about. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Not yet, it's coming up. There you go.
Okay, I can hear. Yeah, I'm going over there.
So we're getting a bit of an echo from one of the members, but I'll try and work through it. So again, we talked about how the requirement for this conversion is 3 off-street spaces. And this property has 3, at the strictest reading, and has 5 in a more practical reading. And so the configuration we had talked about, let me just go through these slides. So space 1, space 2, space 3, and there was an issue with spaces 2 and space 3. And on the lower side, you had spaces 4 and space 5. And so what we had proposed instead was up top, have the 2 and 3 be parallel. And we did some more looking in space 1 here, the kind of kitty cornered one doesn't seem to block any driveway access from the last house on Wells Street. And so space 1, where the red vans typically park, be normal, it's nobody's way. Space 2 would be parallel like this when snow is present. And then you still have spaces 3 and spaces 4 down below. So again, I'm only required, the applicant's only required to show 3 spaces. We can show that in practicality, most days there'll be 5 cars, and they're willing to say that when snow is present on Wells Street, they will knock it down to 4 cars and keep the 2 spaces turned into 1 parallel space at the end to help the neighbor across the street exit their house with a little less interference. And so I shouldn't have stopped my screen share. Hold on one more second. Let me give you the relief requested. And so when this comes up, you'll see that 2 special permits. One is a use permit for conversion from a 2-family to a 3-family. That's under section 128.3. We discussed the standards last time. The others were special permit to reduce parking. So the issue here is that when you're a 3-family, based on the zoning ordinance, the parking requirements look a lot like a parking lot. You're required to have parking aisles, you're required to have certain spacing. And obviously there's enough room for 3 to 5 cars here, but they don't quite match the strict guidelines of a 3-family parking area. So the permit is to allow for 0 compliant parking spaces And that's where we get down to the proposed conditions. So you don't just say 0 spaces are allowed, you say 0 spaces are allowed so long as the existing driveways are maintained. Because you don't want someone to then say, okay, now I can get rid of my driveways. I have a variant, I have a special permit for 0 spaces, right? So that's the first condition, ties into that, allowing 0 compliant spaces. Then talking about the only parallel parking in the upper spaces when snow is present. And then as we discussed last time, because this unit went in before being properly permitted, they agreed to pay a $5,000 fine at the time the building permit to finish the work is pulled. And so it'll be those 2 special permits with those 3 conditions is what the applicant will be requesting from the board at this time. That's it for me.
Okay, so I went back up again for another week, and I don't know, not only do you not, what's going on here? Guys, can you mute or something? I don't know how we're gonna be able to do this. Okay. Not only when we're not even coming close to meeting the legal parking space, but these parking spaces that you're drawing, even on your drawing, are halfway into the street. They're not even on their own property. The one on an angle, the half the car is on the public road. The parking that goes on in front of the house is on a little bit on their driveway. Even if they turn sideways, they're still on the public easement, the blocking part of the sidewalk. It continues down there. So I don't even know. This is a lousy situation. I don't know. And then if we do allow with the conditions, who's supposed to enforce this? Why are we shifting the burden on the people on the street to have to call the police? There's nothing the board can regulate or enforce. I don't know. So I'd like to hear you address how that could happen.
Sure. So I'll throw that picture back up so we can look at it. I think with all due respect, it says incorrect. What's showing here is a standard 9x18 parking space. And a 9-foot wide parking space fits on the property itself. It's right up to the property line, but it shows 9 feet of width. So the car parallel parks up against the wall and they are within the property. They're not within the layout of Wells Street. The angle space absolutely does have a car that hangs out into Wells. But again, with the 2 spaces down below, which are legal parking spaces, and this 1 parallel space, you hit the 3 minimum required off-street spaces. Again, they're not, they don't have proper parking aisles and that sort of thing. But you can get 3 full cars off of Arcadia Street and off of Wells Street, which is all that the zoning ordinance requires. I'm just showing from a practical standpoint how there is in fact additional parking that is feasible, because sometimes there's concern in the R5 district that if there's someone going to visit, if there's going to be a guest staying or whatever, great, you have your 3 required spaces, but where's anyone else going to park? And so I was just showing that in reality you can put 5 cars related to this property with very little issue, but you can still get 3 completely off Wells Street and Arcadia Street, and that be a burden put forth by the zoning board of appeal, the zoning ordinance rather.
But the practice of this applicant has not proven that. Even knowing we were coming back for a site visit, I've been by several times, and the big van is parked. Half of the van is out into the street, parked on the street. If somebody called, they should have towed it away. So they're making no effort
So again, with all due
to show that they could park responsibly.
they are allowed to park in Wells Street. Wells Street is not
Across
public
the
park.
street.
So again, the police have been out here to look at this. This has been the way that this house is parked for decades. Police have been called out there for other issues. This parking is not a problem. The plows that plow that street have never reported an issue. There's never been a single instance of any of those cars, receiving any sort of citation or any request to be moved by any city officials that regularly interact with those cars. Secondly, again, Wells Street is a public street, so people are allowed to park on Wells Street. Certainly, as you likely saw, lots of other people are parking on other parts of Wells Street. All I have to show is that you can park 3 cars off the street, which you can. But if you or anybody else choose to park on a public street instead of in your driveway, that is your right as a citizen of the city of Gloucester, as long as it's a street that does not have a parking ban on it. And so again, their habit of parking perpendicular is irrelevant to the legal standard of, can they show 3 cars off the street? Yes, they can. Might they park in Wells Street regardless? That's their right, along with anybody else. I could go park on Wells Street if I wanted to and walk down Dunkin'
Well,
Donuts.
you could,
right?
but you can't park, you can parallel park on Wells Street, but you can't park perpendicular to the sidewalk on Wells Street or on any street in the city of Gloucester.
That's-
They've shown no effort to park legally, in my opinion, even knowing we were coming back to look. I mean,
Again, it was, it would seem dishonest to park in a way that it's not the way that it's been parked for the last 20
well, if
years.
they're gonna park that way, then I wouldn't approve this.
Well, so again, so we have the condition about turning those 2 spaces to a parallel space. If you want to expand it, we can talk about expanding the condition. But that would be, that would be the board's preference. That's fine. Again, we can show 3 spaces. Realistically, you could have, the 3rd space, that parallel space up top and still fit the red van in the corner, right? So that's still 4 practical spaces. It's up to the board how they want to go about this.
Mr. Chairman,
Peter. Yes, Peter.
I drove down there and sometimes I seen it a little offset. And I think today I drove by and it was parallel with the street. My biggest concern when I went down to that property was if that neighbor across the street could back in and back out. So I kind of did the same routine. I pulled in and I pulled out. I didn't have an issue with it, but I do see your point as far as they should make a better effort on parking that vehicle. And I think that was my only concern really, because I would hate to see that neighbor being blocked in, especially with the snowstorm. And I went down there when there was a snowstorm. Obviously it wasn't I think we only had a foot of snow, but that doesn't matter. Nonetheless, I was able to pull in and pull out. I thought that was satisfying enough to see how they didn't have the vehicles press up against their property. But again, who is that to monitor do we leave that to the people, to the neighborhood, or is that something, we condition and they, honor? That's what I got from it. Other than that, I didn't really have an issue with it. I was concerned about the neighbor next door. And like I said, I was able to pull in and out, and that was, from my opinion, I thought it was satisfying.
My question
you.
was, how can it be regulated? Because a zoning board decision isn't gonna tell the police what to do if the people call the police.
Right.
They're not gonna, the police aren't gonna say, oh, there's an agreement that they'll only park 1 car here when it snows. That's not realistic. Go ahead, Joe.
They should.
Well, yeah,
I don't think they're allowed to park there at all if it snows, right? Because it's just a public street, so they have to remove their vehicles from that area. Where they park it is on their turn, but as far as off-street parking for a snow ban, they can't park it on a public street, just like the rest of the neighborhoods, I would imagine, right?
Yeah,
So-
during a snow emergency for 24 hours or whatever it is.
Right.
So I
right.
agree.
So
Go ahead, Joel.
So I agree with, Mr. Canavo that obviously during a snow emergency, there's separate enforcement, but this condition would be enforced like any other condition this board ever issues, right? If this condition explained how that spot had to be used, and my clients in the future began, or any further, future owner began violating that condition, they would report to the building inspector, and the building inspector would send a little letter saying, hey, you're in violation of your special permit, you need to get this in line, or you're gonna be back in front of the zoning board defending why you should still have this permit. And they're already at a point where they have a apartment 95% built out. They're certainly not going to want to lose an apartment when it's 100% built out, right? So there's motivation to comply, and there's an enforcement mechanism that's the same enforcement mechanism that you have for every condition you ever put on any property. If they violate it, take a picture, write a report, send it to the building inspector, and he'll send an enforcement letter, or drag them back in front of you to explain themselves.
Bill, you're gonna be enforcing that?
Obviously, that's the way we do it, but my concern would be, I have no enforcement authority on streets. So I can't get up in town and move their car off the street. I can tell them they may not be in compliance, but I don't know what else I could do other than that.
If you said they're not in compliance, then you could say you need to get back to the board, and the board could say, we're revoking your permit. Get the third unit out of there. You blew it. We told you how you're supposed to park. You didn't do it, and now you screwed up. But if they behave themselves and follow the condition, then the zoning board won't have a need to revoke their permit.
Any
It's a
other
big motivator.
compliment? Any other comments by the board? Yeah. No? We had closed the public hearing, I believe. Allison, can you verify that for me? I don't have that minutes in front of me.
I would have to check that. I haven't looked. Bill, do you remember?
I know Catherine motioned to continue.
Right, but I believe it was the public hearing was closed and it was continued for a site visit, so the board could see
Yeah,
what
yeah.
people were talking about. But I think the public hearing was closed.
Okay, that's what I thought, yeah.
I thought too.
Okay. Well. We can, any other questions, or we can move to a motion, but I can say, I don't feel we have enough safeguard in place personally to vote in favor.
There, wisdom in asking for further continuance to work offline with the building inspector to see if there's additional safeguards, using your word, we can have in place and propose to the board at a future meeting.
Yeah, we gotta have something better, and it can't be a parking space that's halfway on the land and halfway out in the street. And I wanna see that measurement, because you show that
Okay.
car parallel, but I couldn't park parallel and not be on the public sidewalk. I
Okay,
know you don't show it in your thing, but there's a sidewalk that goes all the way down that street, and they chopped it out for a curb cut at the garage. That was just a garage years ago for the house way out on the corner of Commonwealth. That was Mr. Hinckley's garage. So it hasn't been doing this for decades, okay? I mean, I grew up in that neighborhood and played in that garage, okay? So
okay.
it was never a multifamily. And now it's expanded to want to be a 3-family. I know it was run as an illegal 3-family for a number of years, okay? And now the house got built on the end of the street, which never used to be there. And it just seems like it's getting real jammed in down there, to be honest with you. So unless we can get a continuance. And if there's something in place that would detail that description, even if it means a sign saying no parking, because it's their driveway, but they, like I say, they park
Mhm.
parallel to the sidewalk, and the cars only have 5 feet on their driveway, and the rest of it is out into the street. And that's no way to park anywhere in the city. Certainly not legal.
Okay, so why don't I request continuance and we'll keep working on it.
All right, well, Peter, you want to make a motion to continue to April?
I'll make,
Allison, help me out. Was it the 14th?
April 14th.
Okay. Peter,
I make a motion to petition of Anna Giuliano for continuance for April 14th.
I'll second that. Need a roll call vote on the continuance?
Mr. Gilino,
Yes.
Mr. Russell,
Yes.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
and Mr. Parisi.
Yes. So it'll be continued to April 12th.
Thank you.
Okay, our next hearing is the petition of Sarah Trainer seeking a special permit under 1.9 to alter and expand a non-conforming structure, and 2.3.1 subsection 3 to convert from a 1 to a 2-family with exterior changes and variances for distance between buildings and for lot area, to allow modification to the existing structure, to allow conversion of 1 to 2-family at 70 Thurston Point Road. This is a new beginning hearing because it wasn't advertised properly in the beginning. It had to be re-advertised, so we're going to start from the beginning. Mr. Turner, I believe you're representing. Can we bring Boris in, please?
Do you have the plans for that one? I don't.
Boris there? I believe- Yeah, there we go.
I found.
I don't know what. Mr. Turner, are you there? Can you unmute?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Horace Turner. I'm at 523 Essex Ave, Gloucester, Mass. I'm here representing Sarah Trainer at 70 Thurston Point Road for a conversion from a single family to a 2-family. The structure has already been in front of the board before, back in 2021. For a single family residence. What Mrs. Trainer wants to do now is to actually take the second floor portion and convert that to a 2-family. There would be an additional stair added to it, so there would be some addition added to the exterior of the building. The distance actually from the new stair to the shed, well, let's recap. For the continuation, I actually had Donahoe Survey do an additional plan explaining the coverage. At our first meeting, there was actually a discussion about the coverage of the lot, that we actually exceeded the coverage, where it actually shows 30.6% of the lot coverage, up from 29%. That 30.6% is a total lot coverage of both the roof area and the deck and stairs. If we actually just took the roof area of the site, we're actually under the 30%. We actually come up with 23.2% of lot coverage, just the roof area. So the remaining percentages, deck and stairs. There's a talk of actually having a variance from the building to the shed. We were actually granted back in 21 a variance for the deck in relationship to the stairs, the new the deck to the shed. The new stairs is actually 11, from Donahoe's plan, is actually 11.5 feet away from the shed. So we are beyond the 10 feet that is actually required by the ordinance. So what Sarah basically wants to do is just, have someone actually living in the building while she's away. It's not unheard of to actually have 2 families in the area. There's a two-family, there was a handout passed for showing on an abutters map, showing surrounding two families. So there's actually a two-family at the corners of Thurston Point Road and Wheeler, and also at Mako and Thurston Point Road. And then there's actually listed by the assessor's office, a two-family at the end of Thurston Point Lane. So what Sarah's proposing to do is pretty much in conjunction with what already exists in the area. There also had been brought up a question of parking, where we're actually showing 5 parking spaces on the lot. There was some talk of actually having tandem parking, but that actually won't exist. That actually won't happen. We can actually place 2 cars off of Thurston Point Road, and then another 2 cars off of Thurston Point Lane. And for guest parking, we could actually place another car in between the side of the building where it's already a paved area. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much it. As I said, there was a question of coverage, and the actual coverage of roof structure is actually 23.2%.
Questions by the board? Horace, everything that sits there now, including the decks on the back, is that all part of the original permit?
Yes.
So what you're asking to build additionally to facilitate the conversion, could you just detail what those are? Is it
Well,
the proposed steps on the right side?
That's correct. It's just the proposed steps on the right side for a means of egress out of the second floor by code. So, but everything else, I apologize by the plan not, indicating what's already existing and stuff. But Donahoe didn't have time to actually, take care of that matter. But the only thing that we're actually proposing that is new, that has not been approved by the board, is the actual stairs on the right-hand side.
So that's the only exterior work, to be clear,
That's
would be
correct.
involved to make the conversion possible.
That's correct. All the other conversion would actually happen within interior.
Right, thank you. Are there any
Mr.
other questions
Chairman?
on the presentation at this point?
Mr. Chairman, may I ask Mr.
Yes,
Turner a
Bill.
question for
ahead.
clarification? I'm looking at the plan that was done by Mr. Donahoe, and it's concerning the shed and the stairs that were built. One of the numbers I see says 9'7", but that's to the deck and doesn't include the stairs. Another one said 16'4", which looks like it goes to the corner of the house. Is the proposed addition, is that the deck? I'm not quite sure where the stairs are on. Do you go up the side?
The stairs is the 11.5 dimension. The 16.4, you're correct, is actually from the building to the shed, and the 9.7 distance is from the deck to the shed, but we were actually granted a variance for that previously.
Okay, I understand. I see that now. And so for clarification, Mr. Chairman, I would agree with Mr. Turner that a variance for distance between buildings would not be required. It's already been granted. He's going no closer with the one with the new set of stairs.
Okay, yep, I agree. Okay, any other technical questions or questions on the plan at this point from the board before we take
No.
public testimony? Peter?
So the petitions, are they still just going for the special permit 1.9 and the 2.31? Or is there another? I know this is re-advertised, so I don't have it in front of me. So what is the?
So it's a
Permit.
special permit to alter and expand the non-conforming
Yeah.
structure.
Yeah,
It's a special permit to convert from 1 to 2 family.
right.
And it's a special
That-
permit. I mean, sorry, distance between buildings is not required. But lot area was the concern, Bill, right? So it would be a variance for lot area?
Correct. A variance would be for lot area because when they go to two-family, there's a line in there that says he has to meet the minimum requirement for the district, and they do not.
So special permit to alter and expand, a special permit to convert 1 to 2, and then a variance for lot area. As it is a non-conforming lot.
That's what I was looking for.
Okay, so we will, we'll take testimony from the
Mr.
public.
Chairman.
Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application, if you raise your hand, if you're on your phone, I'll remind you, you hit *9 and your hand will be raised on the phone. Otherwise, on a
Chair-
device, hit the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen.
I believe
Anyone wishing to
Mr.
speak?
Gyllenhaal wants to speak.
Oh,
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
yes, go ahead.
This is a completely new hearing. I was looking at the original hearing and there were some petitions from neighbors. Are they still valid? There were 6 in favor and 14 opposed. Do they have, do
They're gonna
those,
have an opportunity, people are gonna have an opportunity to speak in opposition if they
Okay.
are and in favor if they are. The
so you're saying that they have to
The
re-speak
submitted
and-
documents are part of the record,
Okay, thank you.
the letters and everything up to now. So we'll ask the public, anyone wishing to speak in favor, please raise your hand. Anyone in favor? Seeing no one, is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application? The first one up was Savannah Sarah. If you could come in, bring her in, please.
Hello, I
Remind
am the
everybody.
homeowner. Can you hear me?
I'm going to remind everyone you need your name and address first for the record, and then you can begin to speak.
Sarah Trainer, 70 Thurston Point Road, Gloucester, Massachusetts. And I'm right now in Savannah, Georgia, in my other home because we are not finished up there. And I am the homeowner. And yes,
Okay,
I'm
so-
in favor of it.
You're speaking in favor then, okay, because we had asked, go ahead, we'll allow that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misheard then. No, I am in favor of it. I do understand the lot requirement is not the 10,000 square feet, but there's lots of lots in that area, which I'd put a map of all of them. And the 2-family at the end of Thurston Lane also is an undersized lot. So yeah, I'm in favor of it. I think it's a good thing.
Okay, thank you. And no one else had raised their hand, so we're moving to anyone wishing to speak in opposition.
Oh, I thought you said favor of it.
The first one up was Deb Callahan and Paula Parsons.
You can say that one's not the 2-family.
Hello, can you hear us?
Hello? Yes, can you hear
Yes,
us? Can you see us?
no,
Okay, the first thing I'd like to say is.
the first thing I need you to say is your name and
Oh,
address for
I'm
the record.
sorry. I'm sorry, Paula Parsons, 8 Thurston Lane.
And Deb Callahan, 8 Thurston Lane.
We're at the bottom of the hill, and this is a 2-family that we converted. It was my father's house and converted to a 2-family so that he could live here and we could take care of him. But that was 20 years ago. And I like to make a note that there's at least enough room for 8 cars in this driveway. Our opposition, our biggest opposition is that it's already pretty much built as a 2-family. The heating systems and cooling systems and everything are in there. And I just listened carefully to your proposal before this for the Wall Street property with the 5 cars. And if the 2-family if it's allowed to be a 2-family and the upstairs is the 2-bedroom and someone moves in there with 2 adult female children or male children, and they can share a bedroom, and they're old enough to have a driver's license, there's a potential for 6 cars to be there at that house, and there is just plain not room. And there is no way for 2 cars to pass in front of Sarah Trainer's house, number 70 Thurston Point Road,
Hands on the
without
phone.
somebody pulling over to let the other car go by. So when Mr. Turner says that there's a place there for 2 cars on the right side of the house, not without it potentially hitting the stairway that they're talking about building. And it's, the lot is just plain not big enough for the potential of 6 cars. And they bring in guests and anything else in Thurston Lane just can't accommodate it. 2 cars can't pass as it is now, and that's our opposition. That's our strongest opposition.
Keep in mind, we can only evaluate on the required parking. Whether 10 people come over to visit is not part of zoning.
I understand that. Yes, I understand that. But if there
So
was,
they are
6
more than meeting
was
the
6
requirement for
if
parking.
there was 6 cars of people living in that house, it could not happen. There wouldn't be a blade of grass anywhere.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Attorney Fine, you'll be next.
Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, we can. Allison, did you pull her in?
Okay, I can do
It is,
this.
but for the public, we don't usually see them, remember?
Right, but she was representing last, that's fine. Meredith, you
You want
That's
good
to
to
okay.
go?
all the way in if you'd like.
Go ahead. No, she's okay. Go ahead. Meredith.
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Meredith Fine. I'm an attorney at 46 Middle Street. I represent Charles Miller and Mary Trumbauer of 72 Thurston Point Road, Joseph and Stacia Pacheco of 68 Thurston Point Road, and Paula Parsons and Deborah Callahan of 8 Thurston Point Lane, all of whom vigorously oppose this application. Just so that the newer members of the board understand what happened here, the applicant was given permission to partially demolish the original building and rebuild a single family home, and then built it as a 2-family and is now coming in for relief. So from a legal point of view, this is a new building. They took down the entire building, including the foundation, and it's a new building, and it should be permitted as a new building. And if the application were going to get all the relief that she was required to do, she absolutely would not qualify. The main reason she doesn't qualify is if she has to get a variance requires a hardship in the land itself, whether it's a ledge or wetlands or a weird drop off, but there has to be a hardship in the actual land in order to qualify for a variance. Now, in this case, the applicant was given a variance 2 years ago because of the shed, the location of the shed, and that was the decision that the board made. But if you're looking for a variance for lot area, in other words, this lot is almost half the size of what's required in this zone, where's the hardship in the land? The land has been graded, it's and filled so that it's flat. There's nothing unusual about the shape of the lot. There's no ledge on the lot. There's no wetlands. There's nothing in this land that qualifies for a hardship. So she's not, the applicant absolutely is not entitled to get a variance for lot area. None of the multifamilies that Mr. Turner discusses are adjacent to this property. as you saw, we had received numerous petitions from the neighbors who are strongly opposed to it. Unfortunately, I am out of town at the moment and I don't have the same computer access that I ordinarily have. So I haven't seen how the parking plan works. But if the applicant is saying that instead of the tandem parking that they originally proposed, which also would have required a variance, if the applicant is saying that instead of tandem parking, that they now can fit 2 cars on Thurston Point Road and 2 cars on Thurston Point Lane, there is no way that that parking works. You, as Ms. Callahan just said, you can barely get a car down either of those streets now, much less using it for parking.
The
This
parking's
is-
on site, not on the street.
Well, how can they do that? Unfortunately, I can't see it.
Well, it's showing 5 parking spaces on the property.
Are any of them tandem?
No. What do you mean by tandem?
One
Oh, they all
behind
have their own in and out.
So there are 2 in the front. I'm sorry to have to ask you this, Mr. Chairman, but there are 2.
There's one to the old driveway on the right of the house.
Yeah,
The paved driveway on the right of the house.
yeah.
There are 2 on the left corner that would pull in and out of Thurston Point Road. And there are 2 further
I see.
down Thurston Lane that you would pull right in and pull out. So there are
Along the-
5 spaces
Gotcha.
shown.
So under the garage. Let me say that the 2 spaces that are on the left-hand side of the front, I can't see how that works without going into the city, into where the road is. The property line is really quite close to the front stairs.
They're much to the
So-
left of the
But if they're showing, thank you for describing it. If they're showing 5 parking spaces on this property, that actually makes the problem worse. That actually makes the traffic in that corner completely hazardous and just does not work. So I urge the board to turn this down. This is going to create a traffic hazard. They don't qualify under the zoning. The neighbors don't want it for good reason. It's too much for this small lot. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next, who would like to speak in opposition? Anyone would like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand. Richard Powers is next.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
My name is Richard Powers. My wife and I live on 92 Wheeler Street. We're in the neighborhood. I think the back corner of our property does actually abut to the 70 Thurston Point Road. I just have a few comments. In April of 2020, the board approved a one-family dwelling to be built on the property at 70 Thurston Point Road. The owner then proceeded to build a 2-family dwelling and is now asking for approval from the board after the fact. It appears that Ms. Trainer tried to deceive not only the board, but the neighbors by applying for a 1-family, telling the neighbors they were building a 1-family, and then building a 2-family.
well,
One of the-
I'm not going to allow anyone to cast dispersions on other people. No 2-family home has been granted an occupancy permit at that lot. As of today, there's a single-family home built there, which hasn't even been completed, nor an occupancy permit granted. So let's not make accusations about people's motives or we're not calling anyone a liar. I will not allow you to continue.
No, I'm sorry. Fair enough. But the fact is, she applied for a 1-family to be built and then built a 2-family. One of the board members last month's meeting, or 2 months ago, said when he sees a change come in, he asked himself, would I have approved it if it was applied for that way from the beginning? And I think the question to the board should be, if it had been applied for to be built as a two-family from the beginning, would it have been approved?
Well, that's what he was saying. Yep.
Yep, that's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing none, we'll close public testimony. Discussion by the board.
Bill, question. If this property did not get granted for a two-family, would anything stop the homeowner to permit to use those current proposed 5 parking spots? Would they still be able to use those 5 parking spots, even if it was a one-family?
Yes, if a one family moved in there and had 5 cars, they could park them there. Yes, there's no zoning violation for that.
So to Meredith's argument, it was just more or less, if it got granted, that parking area would be more hazardous, but nothing would stop that homeowner to use all 5 if they wanted to. So I was just trying to make sense of her argument, and that's all. Thank you.
Any other discussion, Len or Rob?
I don't know. I think this is a difficult decision. That's all I can say.
Okay, I'll give you what my thoughts. So we have a building that was approved that's standing there today. They haven't finished it yet, but they can finish it and they could move in and they could have as many cars as they want, like we all can. We all have the right to. And then they can come back to us, or they can come back and ask to convert later on to a two-family. And the only thing they'd be doing is adding that pair of stairs. We have people converting as a matter of right in the R10 zone. So I would say there's going to be a two-family house there one of these days. Okay.
What did he say at the end there?
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
I didn't catch the end of what you said, Joe.
There's going to be a two-family home there one day or another. Maybe not, maybe next month, or maybe it'll be next year, but it has everything to, it can legally be done at some point. They were before us now, I think probably to just make the construction all part of one. I did read the letters. We did receive correspondence from the owner. And, you know, the situation of not living there full time actually makes a little bit of the argument that she doesn't live there year round. So she wanted to have somebody there, but so it's not like it's going to be two family living there. I mean, there will be in the future, probably. You certainly can't regulate. I mean, what might or might not happen. With regard to hardship, I mean, we've ruled in the past that a corner lot creates a hardship. And this is a corner lot. And we recently approved directly across the street from these driveways on Thurston Lane for those folks to build an addition, and their parking backs out onto Thurston Lane. So it's almost like, okay, we got ours in place now, but we don't want you to back out onto the street. So I had a little issue with that, but Bill, I have a question because we discussed a bit about the time frame, the unwritten policy. Is there anything? What would their ability be a year from now if the policy was adhered to, or, you know, the argument was made that the last time that the policy wasn't valid? Well, if the policy is not valid, they probably could convert as a matter of right the next day, I think. But Can you help us clarify that?
Yes, so a little history on that was, it's more than a few years ago now. Shortly after the ordinance was passed, people were doing that. They were coming in, building an addition onto their house, finishing the addition, then coming back right after they were done and taking a permit out to convert to a two-family. And at the time, one of the past board members, who was one of the authors of that bylaw, before the board one day raised that question and asked us what was going on, and we had a long discussion. And in agreement with the board and myself, we agreed that it should be 1 year from after the occupancy permit was issued, then they can change for a permit to convert by right. The only difference with this one would be is they could do the same thing after a year. However, they're going to need still need a variance for lot area.
Right.
Because they don't meet that requirement. That's the only thing they don't meet. So, after a year after they pull the occupancy permit, they could come back, they could come in and ask for that variance and convert to a two-family.
And it wouldn't be it would only be a variance for lot area, not a special permit for 1 to 2? Or still 1 to 2 special permit?
Just a variance for lot area. They've already been passed, so they wouldn't be expanding, so there'd be no special permit required.
Even for the change of use?
Even for the change of use, because they're not expanding the house at that time.
It would be a matter of right. I got you.
Yes.
That's what I thought. So I mean, when I made the statement, this is going to be a two-family home one way or the other eventually. And that's kind of the case because, they're going to ask for a lot area variance when they're not even making the building bigger. So how would you argue against that, I guess would be the question. They're already approved, it's covering this much of the lot. So the conversion would be smoother. It would still require variance, but it wouldn't require the second special permit. So I just think, I think the people did it. What started that tradition was that people were doing it the wrong way. They were adding the addition on as a single family and then converting it. These folks have just partway through the project have said it might be better as a 2, and they've come forward with an application for a 2-family. Doing it up front, it probably makes a little construction easier on the internals and the utilities and all that, but the building's not going to change whatever we decide tonight. It's still going to be that same building. So I guess I'm not sure what the people's objections are.
Mostly traffic.
Right, but we're talking about a side street with no different parking than every other house on the street. Everyone pulls in and out of their driveway. None of them have big turnarounds. And, this is an in and out driveway neighborhood. You pull in or you back in, and you drive out or you back up. And everyone does it. Even the multis on that they referred to, all the pull in and back out driveways.
They have more than enough parking. That is required.
Yeah, I would honestly, this one I think is a good looking project. It's not a monster home or anything. It's appropriate to the lot. How many people live in it? I mean, to say one lady's going to have to live in that all by herself, where you can have a small apartment on the upper level. And so if 2 people come and live there, where we need housing, we're trying to add housing. So I would support it.
Agreed.
Any other discussion, or do we want to have a motion? Rob, Len, you all set?
All set.
Yes.
Okay, Peter, if you could want to make a motion on this application?
I make a motion on the petition of Sarah Trenor seeking special permit 1.9 to also expand a non-conforming structure, 2.31 to convert 1 to a 2-family with exterior changes and a variance. Oh, we don't need the variance for the distance.
We don't need the
between
distance between, but we need the variance for lot area.
And we need, but the variance for lot area, I can see the hardship here. It's a corner lot. I think they took the appropriate steps, and it does meet the housing demand that Gloucester's seeking. So I make a motion.
And motion, and we have a second. I will second the motion. And I'll add that it certainly meets most of the, meets the criteria, the adequacy of utilities, the more than adequate parking, the fact that all the lots up on that neighborhood are undersized. And I know we've granted lot area variances over on Nally Avenue 2 or 3 times, on Thurston Point 2 or 3 times. So it's not unprecedented to grant a variance for lot area just because of the postage stamp size of all those cottage lots that exist, that were built at that time. So we have a motion and a second. We have a roll call vote.
Mr. Russell,
Yes.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
Mr. Gilliland,
Yes.
Mr. Parisi.
I also vote yes. You've heard our decision is favorable. We will put together a written decision as soon as possible and get that out. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next hearing is the
Mr.
petition.
Chairman, did you want to address somebody to write this now, or did you want to wait till a later date?
Let me figure out how many. I think that's the only one we're going to have. So I'm going to ask Catherine to write it.
Thank
And
you.
if you would sign those and stamp those plans on my behalf, I'd appreciate it.
I've done so. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next hearing is the
Thank you.
petition of Darren Seidel seeking a special permit under 1.9 and a special permit 3.1.6A to allow third floor addition and deck to existing 2-family dwelling at 9 and 11 Helens Way. Attorney Favaz.
Thank you. I'll get my screen going for everybody. So once again, my name is Joel Favaza. I'm an attorney at Seaside Legal Solutions, 123 Main Street in Gloucester. I'm here on behalf of Darren Seidel. He's the owner of 911 Helens Way. And as the chairman stated, he's looking to add a 3rd-story addition and a deck to an existing 2-family. And I'll quickly go through and explain the project for you all. So we are in the R10, which is the medium high density residential district. The area is non-conforming. It has multiple yard area penetrations. The lot is non-conforming. It has no frontage, insufficient lot area. It's houses that got built at a time when you kind of just do what made sense on site, but didn't really make sense on paper when you start applying the regulations. The building itself is already a 2-family home, and Darren purchased the lots 2 years ago. And so the only permit we need to add a 3rd story to this, despite all the nonconformities, is just a special permit to alter and expand a nonconforming structure. Quick peek at the site plan. I want to make clear everyone sees this is a pretty remote, even though it's in the R10 and kind of near to Eastern Ave, it's pretty remote in the way it's tucked up along Helens Way. The house with the arrow is 7 Helens Way. That's owned by the applicant also. The house in red is the proposed the house, and the proposed deck is what you see on the right-hand side, which is toward the north of the house. And so,
See that. Very
on the bottom of the plan, which is to the east, you have Wolf Hill. The materials are typically kept in big bays out there. And then you have 2 houses that aren't on this plan, but are, 40 feet higher up behind some woods. So this is just tucked up at the end of Helens Way. And the only house that's really close to it is the applicant's other building. Per usual, the full set of plans available if there's any specific questions to review, including the site plan clean. And so again, this is just the GIS. These property lines are not correctly showing on the GIS. The building, I'm gonna get my little annotation up. Hold on one second. So this is the building we're talking about. It's actually on these two lots, just the way that Map Geo has this area laid out is just kind of incorrect. But I want to point out is that you see down here, we're on elevation 48, elevation 49 at the base of this house. And the two nearest houses are up here, elevation 87, elevation 91. So these things are, 40 feet higher up. And then if I go to the next slide, you'll see that there's significant tree cover. So what's going on here at the end of Helen's Way is really going to be seen by nobody except for the other house right next to it, which again, as I've said several times, is my client's house also. And so we have the one standard here, which is you have to make a finding the change, extension, etc., must be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than what currently exists. And so again, I don't think that deck that's heading in the direction of those houses that are 40 feet up and behind some woods is going to affect anybody. I don't think this third story addition is going to affect, Wolf Hill or again, any of those houses that are, probably unable to see this house for most of the year. And so then actually I misspoke to the second permit that I am asking for, and that is a height permit because the third floor to keep a peaked roof exceeds 30 feet. But again, this I hope for the board is a fairly easy height permit to grant because you pull out your standards here, obstruction of views, there's no obstruction of views. Again, the nearest house being in favor of this, and even then the view from that house toward this one is a view of nothing. It's a view of immediate woods. There'll be no overshadowing based on the location of the property. And again, the pitch nature of the roof means that the portion of the house that's actually over 30 feet tall is, a small triangle part of the roof itself. It's not like the entire mass of the building is up over 30 feet. It's just that upper triangle of the pitched roof. There'll be no impairment of utilities and there are no adverse impacts. Again, I think this project improves the property. It's not going to hurt anybody. It's going to take a tired two-family, make it a little more desirable to live in. My client is actually going to live in the upper unit that he's renovating and continue to rent the first floor out. So anyone who might want to make a motion if we're that lucky after public testimony is taken, these are the two permits I need: a special permit to alter and expand, and a special permit to exceed maximum allowable height, and that would be 3 feet 4 inches of relief sought. So I'll thank you, and I will stop my show for now.
Thank you. Any technical questions by the board members or anything on the plan?
What's the actual height of the building?
The peak of the roof would be 33 feet 4 inches above average grade.
Okay. We'll take public testimony. Is there anyone in the
Mr.
audience that wishes to speak in favor of the application? Anyone in favor, please raise your hand. If you're on a phone, dial *9. Seeing none, is there anyone that wishes to speak in opposition to the plan at 9 and 11 Helen's Way? Anyone in opposition? Seeing no one, we'll close public testimony. There'll be no need for rebuttal. Discussion by the board.
Would you raise the hand?
Good project, pretty modest.
Any,
I don't see a problem with it.
yeah, no, I think it's a good project, pretty straightforward, simple, alter and expand the height permit. Like you say, the houses that are up behind are actually way up off another street. A tower over the thing. As Joel pretty well laid out, Attorney Favazza, the criteria for the special permit for the height, still under 35, which is where they're talking about potentially going to eliminate the need for that special permit as houses get a little taller. And I would see easily supporting this. Len or Rob, do you have anything you want to say?
Yes, Len here. I get a little nervous when these houses are close together and the party owns both of them. I wonder what hearing we'd have if somebody else owned one of those houses. They're very, very close together.
Yep, as,
It's a theoretical question.
no, I get that. The only factor would be the height exception. You know, somebody potentially may say, but the house that it's next to is pretty big too. This house actually is kind of smaller when I went up and looked. So the closer, the house you're referring to is actually taller, even though it's a little downhill, it's still to the sea level, it's taller than this house, and they'll be similar in size after the next level's put on. But yeah, I don't know the people. If somebody was there, they may raise some objection about whatever their privacy, but that's not the case for us. You have that neighbor, and technically, whether it's owned by the same person or not, that neighbor is in favor and wrote a letter in favor. So,
Right. Just wanted to be on the record that we discussed this for future reference.
Yep, good thought. Okay, we're gonna need a motion. Peter, we're gonna need a motion on 2 special permits.
Yep, make the motion on petition of Darren Seidel seeking special permit 1.9 and special permit 3.16A to allow 3rd floor addition and deck to existing 2-family dwelling at 9 and 11 Helens Way. I think it's a modest project. It's pretty good. It's pretty straightforward. I don't believe it's more detrimental to the neighborhood, and it's staying consistent with the character of the neighborhood.
Thank you. Can we have a second? Gentlemen, anybody want a second?
I'll second. Len Gyllenhaal.
Thank you, Len. We have a motion made and seconded. Roll call vote.
Mr. Narvo,
Yes.
For both special permits. I'm sorry.
Mr. Gyllenhaal,
Yes.
Mr. Russell,
Yes.
Mr. Parisi. I also agree that it's not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, and I vote in favor. Heard our result is favorable, and we'd appreciate a draft to help us get that process going. And I'd ask Mr. Sanborn if he'd stamp and sign those plans on my behalf.
I'll do so.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to our next hearing is the petition of Wendell and Beryl Peterson seeking a special permit under 2.3.1, number 3, variance for lot area per dwelling unit and lot frontage to allow an 18 by 34 foot rear addition to complete second dwelling unit at 5 Ryan Road. Attorney.
Thank you. Again, for the record, my name is Joel Favaza. I'm an attorney at Seaside Legal Solutions, 123 Main Street in Gloucester. I am on behalf of Beryl and Wendell Peterson. They are the owners and occupants of 5 Ryan Road. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yep.
So the proposed work is to convert an existing single-family house into a 2-family with exterior changes. By way of background, we are in the R30, which is a low-density residential district. The lot is technically undersized for the R30 district. It has 26,000 square feet, just under that, where 30,000 is required. But important to note, the existing building conforms to all setbacks. It contains currently 1 full unit and this kind of makeshift non-unit, whereas I'll get into in a moment, the owners have been living for a few years. Beryl herself has owned and lived in this house for almost 50 years. And Wendell's been there for almost, I think, over 25 at this point, maybe almost 30. This is a long time resident for all of them. So what brings us here is a few years ago, the Petersons did what I think a lot of us hope to do, or maybe some of us have already done. You know, they took the house, their longstanding family home, and they did a big renovation and kind of made it into, you know, the house they wanted to kind of live out the rest of their life in. New flooring, counters, cabinets, etc. Unbeknownst to Ms. Peterson, there's a chemical composition, some of the materials used caused her to have an immediate and severe nervous system reaction. She's in physical pain. She gets actually physically sick. It's been documented medically. And they think it's to do with some of the finishing materials on the floors. It may also be in some of the other materials that were part of the renovation. And so what they had to do was there was an addition that was on the house in 2003, and they had to kind of make a makeshift non-unit in this addition and get her basically to a portion of the house that had not been part of this major renovation and where she was not being made physically sick by just being home. And so they began renting out the main house, and that was two things. It provides an income stream. As I mentioned, it was a very extensive renovation, cost a bit of money. And so try to recoup the expense of this renovation. And it also helps them as far as their proposal, which is to take this non-unit that they've been kind of living in unofficially into a real unit using safe materials. And again, they had this budgeted to do this project once, and to do it a second time to say, oh, let's go back into the main house and redo the whole darn thing again, aside from the fact that it would be dangerous for her to have to find a new place to live in the interim, it's just not feasible without rental income to kind of make up for the fact they've already spent their project budget once doing the project. And so the relief we need to make this a reality is a use permit. This is a conversion from a 1 to 2 family with exterior changes. As you may know, the planning board has recommended eliminating this from the zoning ordinance, and the Planning and Development Committee just last week also voted in favor of eliminating the need. As all of you may likely know, in the residential districts, you're allowed to build a single family by right. You're allowed to build a 2-family by right. But if you take a single family that already exists and you make exterior changes to make it a 2, suddenly you need a special permit. And so, like I said, both the planning board and P&D have recommended that be eliminated. But the council is not taking final action to this, this current moment, do need that special permit still. I formatted these bullets a little funny, and the variance front yard setback is incorrect. Let me ignore that slide. That was an incorrect typo. Any variances for lot area per dwelling unit, and lot frontage. I do not need a front yard setback. That's just a artifact that hung over from a previous presentation. So you need 30,000 square feet for a legal lot in the R30 district, and I said there's only about 26,000 provided. And lot area per dwelling unit currently in the R30 district, you need 30,000 square feet per unit. And so again, you take 26 divided by 2, there's only 13,000 provided. Again, I want to point out that both the planning board and P&D have recommended reducing this to only 15,000 square feet. In this instance, this property would still need a variance, but it would only be for 2,000 square feet per unit, not 17,000. That sounds like a huge variance. That's because, again, unlike in your R5, your R10, your R20 districts where they're set up so that you can have more than one unit on a conforming lot, the R30 district is currently set up that you need a double lot in the R30 to have just a second unit. And again, both the planning board and P&D have recommended that be eliminated, but they have not been officially eliminated yet. So we're still at that 30,000 square foot threshold. And then lot frontage, there's 80 feet required in the R30, and this only has 75 feet. I want to point out that all of these, with the exception of the lot area per dwelling unit, are just the way things are on the ground. The thing that my client is proposing to do changes this. I also want to explain further that this relief on the variance side is being triggered by the change in use only. The addition they're proposing to build, the physical footprint of this addition, could be built by right tomorrow, so long as it was not used as a separate dwelling unit. They could add the bedroom that they're proposing, they could add the office they're proposing, and they could add everything else that they're proposing except making it a separate dwelling unit and still build that by right. And arguably, they could probably build the addition and then try and backdoor an easier conversion that gets rid of the special permit. But again, we're here trying to do this the right way, trying to show all the cards at once and let the zoning board understand the full picture of what they're trying to do here. Per usual, I have the full set of plans, both before and afters. And again, as you can see, Unit 2 is taking up part of the existing additions. The entirety of Unit 2 is not a brand new addition. It's actually the small part at the very rear of the existing addition that finishes out the proposed unit. This is the site plan zoomed in. So again, you can see the original footprint of the house plus the prior addition plus the proposed addition in red. And this is the house in the context of the neighborhood of Ryan Road. And I'll come back to this in a moment, but I want to first just touch upon the standards. So because we do still today need a use permit, we have the 1.8.3 standards. So we're adding a needed housing unit. Again, there's recent amendments to the GZO that have passed encouraging additional housing unit. We have a housing production plan that said from 2017 until this year, we were supposed to add 600 units, and we've added less than half to date. We need to have 3 spaces for off-street parking. You can easily get 6 cars into that driveway. There are no public utility upgrades required. This will require a secondary septic tank. The leaching field is appropriately sized, but there would be an additional septic tank put into the ground in the backyard. But again, that's not a public service or public utility. And the neighborhood character and social structure. So even though we're in the R30 district, this is actually consistent with the Ryan Road density. Ryan Road, it should not be an R30 district. Ryan Road looks like an R10 or maybe an R20 district. And I'll go over that in a moment. But 12 of 22 lots on Ryan Road have a density of less than 13 square feet per dwelling unit. And at least one house on Ryan Road is already recognized by the city assessors as a 2-family. Back to the standards, quality of natural environment. Again, we have minimal impact. Only lawn is going to be converted into this structure. No trees are coming down, I don't believe. And then fiscal impact, per usual, when you add a housing unit, you get increased tax revenue to the city. And so I just want to circle back to that point I was making about Ryan Road. So this is Ryan Road and Western Ave near it. And for some reason, this is zone R30, which suggests that every lot here is supposed to have at least 30,000 square feet. And I can tell you that only 3 lots on Ryan Road, my client's lot, make my annotation going. My client's lot, the immediate abutter, and the abutter to the abutter. These are the only 3 that have more than 20,000. Every other lot on this street doesn't even meet the requirement for an R20 street. And this house, the immediate abutter, is the only lot on the entire street that actually has 30,000 or more. And I think it's less than 31,000. They're just over the 30,000 line. My client's property at about 25.9 is the second largest lot on Ryan Road. And that doesn't even take into account these other small lots along Western Ave up here and along here, which are also R30 lots that, again, don't even meet R20 requirements. So I don't want this to think they were actually in some rural part of West Gloucester where R30 is trying to keep density down because roads are bad, utilities are weak and spread far apart. We are right off Western Ave, and we are clearly in a neighborhood that looks anywhere else in the city to be an R10 or an R20 neighborhood. And if this were an R10 or an R20, you wouldn't even be seeing me tonight. I would be, my clients would have went to the building inspector's office and pulled a permit, because again, this house conforms. The nonconformities here are all about the lot. And again, despite being the second largest lot on the road, if not in the neighborhood, it being an R30, we're still here asking for, a pile of relief. Let me just kind of clear all this stuff out and keep going. So then you get to the variances, so we're moving a line in the use column, so we have to get new permission for the existing lot, basically. So literal enforcement, creating a hardship for the owner. Like I said, they could build this addition, or they could build an even bigger addition, but they're required to keep these units connected, and they would not be allowed to have more than a kitchenette in their living space. And that would make rental space difficult. Sharing, as they're dealing with now, sharing a kitchen with renters, makes for an unappealing rental unit. The other alternative is that my client who's lived there for nearly 50 years and who has, a fairly tragic medical condition kind of thrust upon her, would have to leave her home, a home she's invested in, a home that, she's planted her roots in. And, I think that'd be more than a hardship. That'd be really tragic that she's not allowed to stay in her own home, through no fault of her own. And so, well, these hardships relate to the soil or shape of the lot. And the lot's sandwiched between other developed lots. You can't change the shape to get additional lot area. You certainly can't change the shape to create additional frontage. This lot was big enough when it was created. And again, actually remains one of the biggest lots out there. But since zoning map changed and grabbed these all into R30, suddenly it's a problematic lot according to the map, but not according to the actual neighborhood makeup. And so you have to also find that if you grant this relief, you let them, convert that addition into a second unit, that you're not going to harm the public good or nullify the GZO. And so again, there are no dimensional nonconformities with the structure, and you're not permitting any tonight. That structure is where it is supposed to be and will continue to be where it's supposed to be. There's adequate parking, so you're not creating a parking situation that might be detrimental to the public good or to the neighborhood or go against that part of the GZO. It allows the creation of an additional housing unit. And again, that is in line with the 2017 Housing Production Plan, recent amendments that have passed to the GZO, and the pending amendments we talked about to the GZO. They're all trying to make it easier to add housing in places, including the R30 district. So again, just to recap, the relief request would be a special permit for use. That's a 1.8.3 6-factor test use permit, conversion to a 2-family with exterior changes, and then 3 variances: lot area per dwelling, and lot frontage. Once again, I thank you. I'll stop my presentation and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions, anyone at this point? The only thing you mentioned, so they've been using it as a 2-family?
So they've not been using it as a legal 2-family because they don't have a second kitchen. So they've been living in the small back part of the house, and they have like a, kind of a kitchenette set up, but no actual kitchen. And what triggered this, they said, you know what? Clearly we can't get this to work. We're never gonna get back into the main house. We got to put a kitchen in. The building department rightfully said, well, you can't put a second kitchen in because that makes it a 2-family. You need to go to the zoning board. But they've been renting the main house out. The main house is the only part of the house that has an official real kitchen. And they want to add, there's an official real kitchen also. And add space back, make it a full unit.
So they've been renting it, a part of the house out as a separate unit?
Yeah, they're renting the main house out and living in this, non-unit for.
And that's not a 2-family?
No, it doesn't qualify because there's
none. It qualified, an illegal 2-family?
No, an illegal 2-family would have a second kitchen in it. Again, the Petersons are not trying to shirk anything, right? They went right to the building department and said, we've been working this out. We realized we're never getting back into the main house. We're done kind of using a toaster oven setup here or sharing the kitchen with our renters. We'd like to put a kitchen in. And the building department said, sounds great, but you have to get some relief from the zoning board first. And again, like I said, they're here showing you all the cards, telling you what's going on. They're not trying to circumvent. They're not trying to loophole in. They're not certainly trying to sneak a kitchen in and not tell anybody. This is.
No, I was just questioning because a lot of correspondence referred to Airbnb being, part of the house being rented out to different people.
Yeah, again, so the Airbnb is actually under the current setup, the kind of renter you're more able to get when there's a shared kitchen, right? And Airbnb is more apt to say, okay, the kitchen is shared with the property owner. If you've ever looked at those listings, they talk about whether you have the whole place to yourself, whether you share parts of the house, etc. But the clients couldn't, God, they'd be in violation of landlord-tenant law. They had, you and I consider as a tenant that was several months or a year. The landlord can't be stepping into the tenant's kitchen and firing up the stove. That's a violation of some pretty basic right to quiet enjoyment. So right now, Airbnb is the only rental they can do because it's the only one they can kind of get away with. Hey, yeah, every now and again, Wendell might be heading into the kitchen to use an appliance.
Okay, any other questions on the application at this point? We'll take some testimony. Anything, Peter?
Mr. Chairman, so are they looking to rent this out year round if this does get passed, or they still continue to do an Airbnb?
I don't know that they're going to immediately switch, but it gives them the opportunity to rent it year round that they certainly don't have right now. Then they continue. Airbnb seems to be working well, so they may continue for some time with that. I don't really know, but it certainly opens an opportunity to have it be year-round rental in the future.
Right, because if they Airbnb it, they're not really meeting the housing demand that Gloucester is looking for, if they're just gonna subject to temporary rental. That's why I wanted to, see what their intent was for this conversion.
Right, and to be clear, we looked at the ADU ordinance that was just passed. Again, another attempt by the city to make it easier for people to add dwelling units to houses. And the ADU doesn't work because this unit is too big, right? You're limited to 900 square feet. And obviously the main house is more than 900 square feet. And 900 square feet isn't quite big enough for my clients to live in full time. So we did look at that option also. And that really kind of brings them back to, they need to have a legal 2-family so they can have their own kitchen again and stay in the property that, again, one's been in for almost 50 years and one's been in for almost 30 years.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak in favor of the application? Anyone in favor? Seeing none, is there anyone that wishes to speak in opposition to the application? If anyone in opposition, raise your hand. And again, I'll remind you, if you're on a phone, you have to dial *9. I see none. We did receive, for the record, some letters in opposition, and there was certainly some extensive complaint about flooding and whatnot that's gone on, along with pictures that were submitted. So those are part of the record. I'd like to ask the applicant about that. What's going on there with the flooding and the trench and
Sure.
the driveway.
Yeah, sure. So if you'd like me to respond to the letters that were sent, I'm happy to do so. So you received a letter from the neighbors at 3 Ryan Road. And again, if you read their letter, a big concern was the location and proximity of the addition to their shared property line. Although I will admit they complained about an air conditioner condenser. The Petersons were first made aware of that at a neighborhood meeting that we had before we applied. And the Petersons have already taken care of that noisy air conditioning unit. So that's all taken care of. They genuinely didn't know it was making noise, right? Anyway, moving on. The complaints from 3 Ryan Road seem to be primarily about location of the addition. The guys point out that the location of the addition is conforming. It's not too close to anybody's property line. It's not too tall. It's not too anything, right? It's a conforming addition. It's just the use of the addition that's triggering all of these problems. So, although we can understand, the neighbors of 3 Ryan Road being concerned about the unknown until it's constructed, you can only kind of visualize it. This would be allowable in its location as proposed. As to 7, so one of the issues I believe they spoke about with runoff and such was initially when they had the driveway paved, there was an issue where it was pitching toward the neighbors at 7. And it's my understanding, I'm not, I don't want to speak out of school. I don't know when these photos were taken. Perhaps when the snow was somewhat recently. But my understanding is that the Petersons have already, paid to have the contractor come back and re-pitch the driveway so that there's actually almost a berm that stops water from heading toward 7. And they've actually pitched it to trench into the Petersons' backyard. So there is runoff coming from the driveway because it's a driveway, it's asphalt, right? And there was admittedly an issue where the first attempt by the paving contractor, unfortunately pitched it away from number 5 toward number 7. That has been rectified. I think if you guys went out there, you probably saw some evidence of that. I don't have any photos of that currently, but I know that I've been out there and I've seen the second round of work that pitches the water away from 7. Now, with regards to any future issues with either the septic or the drainage, I would hope this board can find comfort knowing that a drainage plan is going to be required, or is likely to be required when they pull the building permits, add the additional space for the back. And the septic system is going to undergo review anyway, because like I said, the tank itself is just a little too small for the bedroom count they want. And so they have to add a secondary tank. So any of those things are going to have eyes of the city on it that frankly otherwise wouldn't be looked at if the status quo was maintained currently. So this allows for a little more oversight from the city to make sure if there are any issues related to drainage or septic, that those get taken care of. But otherwise, the runoff in the driveway, there was an issue. The Petersons were alerted to that issue and did rectify that issue.
Agreed. Yeah, there'll be oversight for certain on drainage and septic. Okay, anyone else? Any questions or discussion? I guess, anyone? No?
Joe,
Mr.
they
Chairman.
had,
Go ahead.
Peter?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I was just asking, what's the hardship? Is it because of the health of the petitioner and that's why they had to build?
No, so he
What's
talked
that?
about the lots on a curved part of the road. It's consistent with the other lot sizes in that neighborhood, being slightly undersized. And the things they're asking for in the variance, you can't make it any bigger, you can't move it, you can't change the frontage. So
Right.
those would be legitimate hardships for what
Right.
they're asking for, yeah.
Okay.
Now, keep in mind, I don't know about conditioning. I was wondering if there was, maybe we could condition if there were going to be additional air conditioning units that they not be placed. Yeah, it's on the setbacks, but anything more to it is closer to the other people's house. So maybe that would be a condition. That's not unreasonable. That no units be added on that side. I would think that would help alleviate some neighborhood concern. I think obviously the drainage is going to be overseen by the engineering department. They're going to have to produce a plan that shows where the water is going to go and be contained and dispersed on site, and also the septic system improvements. So I think we've got enough safeguards there. I don't know if everybody agrees, but certainly any other discussion, or we can move ahead with a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, no,
I was just concerned that the attorney kept referring to, well, if the proposed zoning laws changed, he could do this or he could do that. We can't make a decision based on stuff that's proposed. We can only decide on what's there right now.
right, correct. And they're asking for what I would consider fairly modest, 2,000 square feet per dwelling unit, although, yeah, it says it's supposed to be 30, but we've traditionally said that's a ridiculous requirement that was kind of put in place during the panic of sewer. So they took the R30 and they're really working to fix that. I mean, I know it's not changed yet, but it doesn't make any sense that, in every zone, you need half the size of the lot per dwelling unit so you can have a two-family. But in this zone, for some reason, they said you need twice as much, and it didn't make any sense. It's a real flaw, I think, in the ordinance, and we've granted many of these variances for that area. It is 26,000. It's not, whatever it is, it's not much smaller than required, actually minimal amount percentage-wise. And again, the frontage, it's a older subdivision when that was the standards, and the lots were just chopped up in those standards. Like I say, they tend to be all undersized. It's in harmony with the neighborhood. It certainly meets what the neighborhood looks like and feels like. And, having been up there and know a lot of people that have lived up on Ryan Road, so it's a neighborhood. And I don't think anybody has big arguments with the Petersons. I think they were just concerned about a few things. And aired that, and I think we're gonna try to address a little bit of it, so. Anything else? So we'll get a motion?
Mr. Chairman, there's
Yes.
also a special permit conversion, right? Because I didn't see it on the,
Yeah, it's 2.3.1.
right.
Is the
Oh, it is right
special
there.
permit. And then the variance is for lot area for dwelling
What?
and frontage.
Frontage, yep, I see it.
Yeah.
I didn't see the 2.3. I got my
Yeah.
pen scribbled over it. I make a motion for the petition of Wendell and Beryl G. Peterson seeking special permit 2.3.1. And also a variance for the lot area per dwelling unit, and lot frontage to allow an 18 by 34 rear addition to complete the second dwelling of a unit at 5 Ryan Road. Understanding the hardship, they can't change the shape of the lot, or they can't change the shape to create additional frontage. It's consistent with the character of the neighborhood. Like Joe mentioned, it seems to be within harmony. And I don't believe it's more detrimental to the neighborhood.
Motion made, and we'll need a second.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded on the special permit and the variances listed. Roll call vote.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
Mr. Gilliland,
Yes.
Mr. Russell,
Yes.
Mr. Parisi.
I'm going to vote yes for the special permit and the variances. I feel it is in harmony with the neighborhood. So it's not substantially more detrimental. And I would hope that they can finish it nice and satisfy everybody in the neighborhood and follow the regulations. So I vote yes, it's been approved. You've heard our decisions favorable. We appreciate a draft. And Mr. Sanborn, if you could stamp and sign those plans for us.
I will, sir.
Okay. Couple more to go here. Our next hearing is the petition of Angela McAvini seeking a special permit under 1.9 to allow a second floor addition with garrison overhang and rear vestibule at 957 Washington Street. Attorney Savaza?
Rookie move, I was muted. For the last time this evening, my name is Joel Favaza. I'm an attorney at Seaside Legal Solutions, 123 Main Street in Gloucester. I'm speaking right now on behalf of Angela McAvini, owner of 957 Washington Street. As the chair mentioned, the proposed work is adding a second floor addition, a little garrison overhang on one side, a small rear vestibule at obviously the rear of the house. The house is a single family home and will remain a single family home. So we are in the R20 district now. We are in the low medium density residential district. This is a non-conforming building because it violates the front yard setback. It's also a non-conforming lot. It's only 9,900 square feet. This is an R20 zone, so you're supposed to have 20,000 square feet. It's an existing building. I'm sorry, the existing building is a single family, and the McAvini family has owned it since 1972. So that's a full 50 years here at Washington Street. So the relief requested is just a special permit to alter and expand. This is what I consider a relatively minor renovation. It's going up. It's not even getting close to the 30-foot height limit. Again, there's an 18-inch overhang, so while the foundation footprint won't change, the upper floor will have 18 inches, further width, and then a little rear vestibule, which is actually being built inside the very small buildable envelope on this site. Here are the plans per usual. If anyone has any questions, we can go back through them. And here is the site plan. And here is the full size of the GIS picture, both with satellite imagery and just the base map that we have. Oh, and the house itself, of course. So quick, you go, what's the standard here? you have to say, is this addition going to be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than what currently exists? I don't think there's gonna be a real tangible impact on the abutters. The changes are primarily vertical, and they meet the dimensional requirements, as I said, in that the vertical dimensional requirements. There's no extension of the footprint other than that rear vestibule and kind of the overhang. And so again, the finished product is going to be 26 feet, 7.5 inches above average grade. So it's not like she's even trying to max this out and go all the way up to 30 feet. This is still going to leave, 3.5 feet of unused upward expansion, right? And again, the rear vestibule is actually inside the building envelope. So if you look at this here, I've highlighted in blue, that is the only part of this lot that is not violating a setback, either a rear or a side or a front. And the red outline inside the blue is the vestibule. So the vestibule is one of the few parts that'll be a conforming addition. And then that red sliver on the southwest side, that represents the Garrison overhang. So that's kind of the, from the sky looking down, the expansion that you'll see. And again, as I mentioned, it is going up, but it's not even going up to 30 feet, right? So I think the standard as to whether this addition is going to be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood is hopefully an easy test for the board to execute. It's a fairly modest addition. It's Charles Azarian is the architect. If any of you are familiar, he does excellent work. And so I think it's going to be a really nice looking project when it's all done, if she's fortunate enough to get the special permit to alter and expand that she needs tonight. So that's the relief requested again. And I thank you, and I will stop the share.
Thank you. Any questions on the plan or any of the details at this point? Hearing none. We'll go to public testimonies. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application, please raise your hand. Anyone in favor? Seeing none. Anyone wish to speak in opposition to the application, please raise your hand, and I'll remind you, if you're on a phone, dial *9. The first one up is phone number 0320. If we could bring that person in, please, Allison. I'll remind everybody that please first state your name and address for the record. Hello? Hello, can you hear us? 0320. If you're on your phone, you dial *6, we'll unmute you. Hello? Nope. You raise your hand again, we'll try to bring you in if you wanted to speak, although I don't see them at all. Anyone else? We'll try to get her back. Anyone else wishing to speak, or him or her, I don't know. In opposition, please raise your hand. Opposition? I'm going to give that person a second to dial back in. I think they might have disconnected themselves. I'll just hold a minute. We could. That's a different number. But anyone wishing to speak in opposition, please raise your hand. There's 0320 again. Did you want to speak? Hit *9. Okay, there we go. Allison, we can bring that person in, please. Hello, are you there?
Hello, can you?
Yes,
Hello?
we can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, sorry.
No problem.
My name is Elena Grillo. I live at 6 North Kilby Street. I am I'm on one side of Angela's property.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a little bit of background. my grandparents came to this neighborhood, North Kilby Street, in 1905 from Italy. I have a lot of history here. My parents built our home here in 1956. I've lived in this house for over 60 years. They located the house in the specific area on the lot because of the beautiful views of the bay. I care about this area very much and all the historical homes. And the homes, a lot of the homes in this area have been updated, but the one great thing has been they've maintained, the people who've updated them have maintained and respected the original structures. Back in the fall, I've been maintaining this house because, again, I respected my parents, put a lot of work into this home and the property. And I just invested, another $10,000 into a brand new bay window this past fall, and to have the last side of my house reshingled. What Angela and what they're planning to do, the height, I understand, isn't going up. It's going up, approximately 7.5 feet. That approximate. It's going to impede my view, period. I will have no view of anything. And, like I said, for 60, I've lived here. I've been looking at the bay, the sunsets, especially during these hard times. And I've worked at home. I sit and just look out the window and breathe and relax. Anyway, that's, I have concerns about the height, and I don't think I'm the only neighbor that has concerns about the height. And even if that height can be, I understand it's under range or whatever. Again, looking at that little cottage, I remember, the people who, lived there years ago and owned it originally, and used to sell lobsters out of there, Mr. Sadler. I hate to see the structure change at all, to be honest with you. But anyway, that's what I have to say. It's bumming me out because, again, you're looking at something and you've had property here for this many years, and now everything's going to go away. It's just upsetting. And I think it would be with anybody.
Okay, thank you very much for calling in. Anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition? Please raise your hand. *9 on your phone. Seeing none, be rebuttal. Attorney Favazza.
Sure. I'm just going to try and get the window up to share with everybody. Hold on one moment, please. All right. Everyone able to see the map geo screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So the neighbor who just called is in lot 157-12.
Wow.
That's this house right here. And so I just want to just make clear to the board, obviously, the first thing I need to put on the record is that view is not a condition the board's allowed to consider when weighing these type of special permits. View comes in if in fact there is a height exception being requested, which there is not in this manner. I also want to point out that, as you can sort of see, this house begins around elevation 50 at the corner. And when you get down to the street, you're around elevation 36. The corners of the house are around elevation 40. So the house from the caller is roughly begins 10 feet higher than Angela and the second house begins. The second thing I just want to mention is, again, it is about a 7.5 foot increase from the height. So it is not like, and it will remain this, this peaked roof. And so it's not like it's going to be this big cube shooting up out of the sky. It's not like these two lots are on even playing fields. And we're hopeful that, again, although it's not part of the test you apply, we don't think it's going to be actually as detrimental as the applicant's neighbor may be concerned that it will be. But again, just to reiterate, the complaint was about view. That's not one of the standards before you. And we think this actually will not impact that neighbor to the degree she thinks it will. And it's certainly not going to impact the neighborhood, which is the standard, in a substantially negative way.
Thank you. Discussion? I'll go say for the record, when I go out and look at every project, and I went down there, and I always try to anticipate, I understand the plans without leaving my house, so I knew what was going to be built, but I like to go down and I like to get a feel for the neighborhood, and I like to anticipate what people might object to. And in this case, I looked at the houses behind. There's one a little behind to the left, and there's the person that spoke's house to the right, up the North Kilby a little bit. So I walked up to both houses and I looked over this house, and I took some pictures on my phone. There's a lot of buildings across the street across Washington Street. And I couldn't imagine this thing getting in anybody's view. I know view's not a factor that we even consider, but I always like to, be ready for what objections might come up. And I really didn't feel, and the other neighbor didn't speak, and I was positive from up there that all they could see was that big house across the street, almost directly across the street. There's a big old home there, pretty tall, and a lot of trees. And if anything, to see any of the bay or to look over, that little cove, you'd look to the left away from this house. So I really don't, I understand the person's concern, and, and maybe it's not going to look the same when they look out, but I don't think it's, even though we wouldn't be able to consider it, I don't think it's going to be that detrimental. So I think it's a very modest addition, well below the height, which takes a lot of things out of play. And like we mentioned, the Attorney Favazza mentioned, our only standard to apply is this addition going to be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood being the entire area. And my feelings, I would have to say, no, it's not, and that I would support a special permit. Yeah. Anyone else have any discussion by the board?
Yeah, Len Gyllenhaal here.
Yep.
One of the advantages of meeting in person rather on Zoom is you can talk to the people directly. I just wonder if this neighbor had talked to the applicant at all. It's always good to express your feelings, and maybe they could have made a modest change that would have helped this person, but we don't know that, and we can't vote on that. But I encourage anybody listening, anybody that is going through a similar thing, talk to your neighbor about it, and then come to us.
Right. From what I heard, it sounds like both families have lived there for decades and know each other well. I'll ask Attorney Favazza if there was any conversations had, if he knows of that.
Yes, the neighbor reached out to Angela, and I think Angela put her in touch with me. I provided her with a full copy of the plans. I also tried to provide a little explanation as to what the change was going to be. But again, to Mr. Gyllenhaal's point, as for compromise, you heard tonight the position taken was kind of they didn't want to see the house modified, and so again, we think we're well within reason to modify it as proposed. We think it was already a very fair proposal to the immediate neighbors and certainly the neighborhood.
Thank you. I'm glad that conversation took place. Makes
Anything
me
else,
feel a
anyone?
little easier.
Okay, if we'll move to a motion.
I make a motion on the petition of Angela McAvini seeking special permit 1.9 to allow second floor addition with garrison overhang and rear vestibule at 957 Washington Street. I think this is a good addition. It's very modest. I don't believe it's more detrimental to the neighborhood. Staying under 30 feet, they're only going up 7.5 feet. I don't know how much more modification they could have done to appease the rest of the neighborhood. I think it's a good project and I'm in support.
So we have a motion made on the special permit. Anyone second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded on special permit. Roll call vote.
Mr. Gilino,
Yes.
Mr. Russell,
Yes.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
and Mr. Parisi.
I also vote yes. I believe it is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. It's a nice, cute, small home with a minimal addition to it. I think it's a nice looking project and I vote in favor. You've heard our decision is favorable. Appreciate the draft, and Mr. Sanborn, if you'd stamp and sign those plans on my behalf.
I will.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay, we'll move on to our last hearing of the evening. And this is the application petition of 625 Essex Avenue LLC, seeking a special permit for a change of use, 2.3.1, section 6. A special permit for parking in front yard, 4.1.4, subsection 2. A variance for front yard setback, 3.2, to allow petitioner to construct an addition and convert a single family to a 3-family dwelling at 625 Essex Avenue. Attorney Sheedy, I believe, is on.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Sanborn. My name is Attorney Wilhelmina Sheedy, 76 Main Street, Rockport, Massachusetts, representing 625 Essex Avenue, Essex Ave LLC, concerning their petition for a special permit to convert the property from single family to 3-family units under section 2.3.16, and a special permit for parking in the front yard under section 142, and a variance for front yard setback under section 3.2 of the Gloucester zoning ordinance. Plans submitted by the petitioner, elevation of floor plans prepared by the Building Center, Inc., 1 Harbor Loop, Gloucester, and a site plan prepared by Gateway Consultants, also of Gloucester. The petitioner submitted a photograph of the southwesterly side of the existing building. Just get some. Pull this down here. This is the photograph of the existing building. And they also submitted a rendering of the proposed building. I must have missed it. Let's see here. Where's the rendering?
Keep it outside of the camera.
It's in there somewhere, but we'll go to the site plan for the time being. The petitioner is seeking to add an addition to the existing non-conforming single-family structure in order to convert the property to 3-family units. The existing structure was built approximately in 1900, according to the assessor's records, thus predating the adoption of the zoning ordinance by many years. The subject lot is located in the R10 zone, which requires a 10,000 square foot lot size with 2,000 square feet per dwelling unit. The lot is in the process of being divided with 2,372 square feet remaining with the residential dwelling. And therefore, this lot will have over twice the lot size required in this district. There will also be 106.34 feet of frontage on Essex Avenue, where 65 feet is required, thus also exceeding the frontage requirements under the GZO. The existing structure meets all dimensional setback requirements with the exception of the front yard setback. which is 3 feet where 20 feet is required. The proposed two-story addition measures 36 feet by 28 feet and will be compliant with all of the dimensional requirements, section 3.2 of the ordinance, including the height of 26 feet. The elevation of the addition will be no higher than the existing house. The plans accompanying the petition provide further detail as to these items. This lot can easily accommodate the proposed addition. The location of on-site parking, let me just go to that one. Here in the front, it would be no closer to the street than the existing structure. However, because the parking will be in front of the new addition, the petitioner has requested relief from section 4.1.42, subsection 2, if the board felt this relief would be required for the new parking. Due to the change in use, the petitioner is also seeking a variance for the existing non-conforming front yard setback for the existing structure. The variance for the front yard setback should be issued pursuant to section 1.7.2 due to the substantial hardship created by the unique characteristics of the property. Granting the requested variances will not derogate from the intent of the ordinance or harm the public good, and that it will allow the long-standing building to remain where it is presently located on the lot. The owner would otherwise face a significant hardship due to the unique shape and location of the existing house on the lot. In order to create a 3-family home that meets the dimensional requirements of the ordinance, the existing structure would need to be torn down and relocated elsewhere on the property. And as I said, according to the assessor's records, the house was constructed in 1900 prior to zoning, and the current nonconformity will not be changing under the project. The project meets the factors set forth in section 1.8.3 for a special permit. Namely, the locus has ample on-site parking for at least one parking space per unit. The utilities, including city water and sewer currently serving the locus, are adequate to service 3 dwelling units. A 3-family use fits in with the many multifamily residential structures in the neighborhood in which the locus is located. There will be no impact to the qualities of the natural environment. In fact, the Conservation Commission has approved the project and has issued an order of conditions. Lastly, the increased dwelling units will contribute to the city's housing production plan and will bring in increased tax revenue to the city of Gloucester. A special permit pursuant to section 2.3.1 subsection 6 should be issued to permit the 3 dwelling units, as the proposed use will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance, and that it will not adversely affect the neighborhood, the zoning district, or the city to such an extent as to outweigh the beneficial effects of said use. I would ask that if the board were to act favorably on this petition, we would ask that your vote and written decision acknowledge that the current lot will be divided as per the petitioner's plan, and that relief granted anticipates this potential division, and it will not void or require an additional amendment should this division occur. I'll stop this share.
Okay, so the existing lot is 20,372, and it's going to be divided into.
No, that's the remaining lot. The lot for this project is going to be 20,372.
It is, okay.
Yes. Mhm.
But right now, it's like 30,000, and you're going to
Right
carve
now,
off
it's
10.
yeah, it's like 30,000, almost
I got that.
31,000. Yep.
Okay, and the existing dwelling is the only thing creating the front yard setback, and that's the old Woundy house that's been there forever. Okay,
That's correct.
I'm with you. Any other questions on the at this point on the plans or the presentation? Anyone? Okay, let's take some public testimony and then we'll have a discussion. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the application, please raise your hand. Anyone in favor? And if you're on a phone, you dial *9. Reminder. Anyone in favor? Seeing none. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Anyone in opposition? I have a hand up. Stephen Clayton, could we bring him in?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Stephen Clayton. I'm 613 Essex Avenue. And I'm not really in opposition to this. I just want to understand something that I heard about this lot being divided. What are the purpose of dividing the lot and where would the new lot boundaries be, I guess, is my question.
Attorney Sheedy, could you share that screen again of the site plan?
Sure
So we can
thing.
go?
So here is the existing, let me see, I think,
The big triangle was the Woundy property.
yeah,
and-
let me look at this one. Oops. That one. Sorry.
Other way.
I know, I'm going the wrong way. Yeah, this is probably a good one.
Didn't have to have something on the road. There would be
So
land.
this whole area in here is the existing property. And the subdivision is going to carve out just this, maybe this one's better.
That one shows better. I think.
Yeah, this one's better. Get it the right way. Yeah, so this will be, the lot line is going to be here and then running here. So that to the right is lot 2, which is only 10,000 square feet. And the existing lot is going to be to the left here, lot number 1, and it includes all of this area plus all the area behind up in here. So that's going to be the new lot to the right, lot 1.
So it's sort of like where it drops down the right side of the existing house. It kind of falls down to a lower backyard.
Yes.
And then all that frontage. So it'll have a significant amount of frontage on Essex Ave also. So they're kind of making that triangle into 2 lots.
Exactly.
Now, is that I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt the person that came on. I'll have
Am I
time.
still here? Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know
go
if I
ahead.
still have. So I would just, so what is the purpose of dividing the lot? Is there going to be a structure on lot 2 eventually?
That would
I
be,
would, go ahead, me.
yes. That would be a building lot.
Okay. All right. That was my question. I didn't understand that this was being divided up as well. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition or questions? We're loose and open. I can't see, can you take the screen down?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I can't see the participants. Thank you. Beverly Palmacy has a hand up. You can bring her in. Can you unmute yourself? There we go.
I actually have a question. It seems
Can you
as
give
though.
your name and address,
Oh,
please?
sorry, Beverly Palmachi, 8 Commonwealth Avenue, Gloucester.
Okay,
I had a question about why the lot was being divided the way that it is, which seems to be creating a non-conforming situation. It seems as though if the lot were manipulated differently, there'd be room for parking behind the new structures. Isn't that correct?
well, the lot that this proposal is on is more than twice as big as required in the area. And the piece that carved off to the right is just over 10,000, which is the requirement for another house lot so that another home could be built there. So they have a lot of land in the back, but it's a lot of wetland. And again, I think wanting to leave the existing home and add to it is how you end up with that shape.
So by dividing their lot, they're creating a situation where they're making it non-conforming for the addition,
No,
right?
No.
I mean, for the parking, on that additional structure.
no, the reason the parking comes up in discussion is because when you go to 3-family, the ordinance still has the old, they used to treat 3 families as sort of a bigger project. And they made it part of the 1 and 2 family regulations, but they never changed the parking. And the parking for 3-family and up was almost like a parking lot, where the spaces had to be exactly spaced. They had to have lines and they had to have curbs and they had to have lighting. And that doesn't make sense for a residential 3-family home. So the parking is only needed to meet the requirement, but their variance is because it's not going to be that stringent a layout, in other words. It's
I thought
not-
I was
not
told,
effective.
sorry,
Go
I thought I
go
was
ahead.
told by Sean Henry, I don't know who told me this, that if you were making a change and you were required to put in parking,
Yes.
that the parking could not be in, there had to be a certain setback. It couldn't be in front of the house. It had to be, I thought he said behind or beside the structure.
It can't be in front of the house. It can be along the side of the house. And in this case, the old home is only 3 feet from the street. And if you saw, when we looked at the plan, it looks like all the parking spaces are further back than the front of the home. Now, they've asked for a permit to allow it if we made the determination that it's in the front. And again, they would have a hardship in that the wetlands would prevent, and the Conservation Commission sort of already ruled on that. They're not going to let them pave a parking area out back in the wetland. So that's what I'm hearing and seeing. I don't know if that helps.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but I'm just wondering how these rules work, because I was told that, I tried to speak earlier, no matter how many times I put my hand up regarding Wells Street. I guess you never noticed that my hand was up because I was.
When someone raises their hand, it comes immediately on the top of my screen, and we have 3 people looking for it. So I don't know.
I don't know what
Right.
happened. I sent an email to Allison saying, I'm here. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
But anyway, on Wells Street, which apparently you're familiar with because you said you grew up there.
We're not going to talk about that right now.
No, I'm talking about this in general. I was told that you couldn't put parking in front of a house if it were too close to the street. That they had to, for these new rules, that parking would have to be behind a building or beside it, because to put it in front, it doesn't go along with current zoning.
Not
So
for 1 and
therefore,
2 family.
this lady is asking for an exception to be able to put parking, correct, in front of this new addition without the required setback. Isn't that right?
I can, Mr. Chairman, I can try to answer that for her.
Please, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so our zoning ordinance says for 1 and 2 family, there is no requirement where parking can be. You can park anywhere in your property on a 1 or 2 family. When you go to 3 family or more or other commercial properties, parking becomes regulated. On 3 families or more, 3 or 4 multifamilies, parking cannot be in the front yard setback. And it's important, it's the front yard. I'm sorry, not the setback, it's the front yard. Front
Only for
yard
a
is
3 or 4 family? Is that what you said?
3,
Correct.
4, any other multifamily. So,
Okay.
but front yard is the line that starts at the street and
Right.
goes to the first part of the building. Anything beyond the first part of the building becomes a side yard. And in this case, We looked at this when we were reviewing the applications in our office. We determined that the parking as shown on the plan is not in the front yard.
It's a side yard then.
It's a side yard,
Okay,
yes.
all right. Okay, I have no interest in this particular property. It was just in general, I was trying to understand that rule.
Right.
And I better understand it now, so.
Okay,
thank
good.
you.
I hope I helped you understand.
Yes, yes,
Thank you, Bill. Glad we could help.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Or wants to weigh in on anything going on in Czechoslovakia or Russia or anything? No? Okay, so hearing no one else, there's no, there is, you can rebut. I mean, I don't think there was really any objection, but.
No, I'm fine.
Okay. So what we're dealing with is a conversion from 1 to 3 family. The parking, I think, is adequate. We don't need the 4.1. I mean, the 3.2 for the 4.1 for the park in the front. We do need the 3.2 for the front yard setback, and that is only to legitimize the existing home that sits there. That variance hardship is that the home's already there. They would have to tear it down and move it back. And I think they've established that as a legitimate hardship. So we're gonna have a permit to change the use from 1 to 3. A variance for a front yard setback. I think that's all we need. Am I good? So with
Yes,
that in
Mr.
mind-
Chairman, if I could, and just to include in your vote that a division of the property would not be affected by this vote. That
Right.
the
Is
relief
that an A and
granted-
R? Or is that gonna be an A
It's an A&R. It's an A&R. Yeah.
Yeah, we have, so our ruling is not gonna change. Is based on the subdivision, but if it didn't happen, it wouldn't affect us either, so.
Correct.
Yeah. You can write that in the decision.
Thank you.
Highly
We need a
recommend. you do.
motion. We'll need a motion on this one, please.
Joe, you might have to help me out here on this one.
I'll make it if you like. So I'll
Okay.
make a motion on the petition of 625 Essex Avenue LLC for a special permit for the change of use 2.3.16 from 1 to 3 family, and a variance for the front yard setback 3.2 to allow the petitioner to add an addition and convert a single family to a 3 family at 625 Essex Avenue. With that motion, I would agree that the special permit for change of use is in line with the housing plan to add units. It's in line with the zoning being the R10. And the front yard setback, I've already spoke about the meeting of the hardship there, and that the house already exists. It's existed for over 100 years. That's just where it is, and it's not realistic to ask. It would be detrimental to the people and a severe financial hardship to have to tear it down. And I think that gives us ground for the variance. I'll need a second.
Second.
Thank you, Peter. We have a motion made and seconded for a special permit and a variance. Roll call vote.
Mr. Russell,
Yes.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
Mr. Gyllenhaal,
Yes.
and Mr. Parisi.
I also vote yes. You've heard our decision is favorable. We'd appreciate if you could produce a draft decision for us to review.
I will.
And Mr.
Thank you.
Sanborn, if you would stamp and sign those plans on my behalf, would be much appreciated.
I will.
Okay, that's it for the hearings.
But could I make a comment, Mr. Chairman?
Certainly, yeah, we're gonna talk for a minute here.
You did a really good job of helping people understand what we were talking about, and you handled us rookies pretty well too.
Now, everybody
Thank you.
did well. It was a very difficult meeting. I appreciate you all getting on and getting up to speed. We don't meet again for 3 weeks, so it gives everyone a chance The packets aren't ready yet. They'll be
So-
advertised next Thursday, and they'll be available then. So we do have a pretty full plate at the March 31st hearing. So you'll pick up your packet, study the plans, go out and do your site visits. We're available, if anyone wants to go out on a site visit together, that's possible. We'll look at projects in small, only group of two, 2 or 3. We can't be more than that. And we won't discuss the merits of the case. We'll just help each other understand what's before us on the site visits. That's all legal and legitimate to do. And it's kind of nice when we can get back in public and we'll be able to help each other out a little better, look at plans together, and kind of like the world used to be. I'll be looking forward to that. So thank you all. We'll get communication to everyone set, and our other members will be back, so it'll be a little easier on March 31. And we'll go from there. We will need a motion to adjourn officially. Someone wants to make that?
Make a motion to, oh, go ahead.
I move we
Rob, why don't you
adjourn.
make a motion to adjourn, Rob?
I make a motion to adjourn tonight.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. Roll call vote required.
Mr. Canavo,
Big yes.
Mr. Gillino,
Yes.
Mr. Russell,
Yes.
Mr. Parisi.
I vote yes also. We're officially adjourned, but you don't have to hang up. If you have other questions, we can talk just about the world or whatever. Thank you all for the effort. Everybody can. Good
That
night.
was good, Joe. How did I do? All right? Did I
We
screw up
survived
bad?
it. We survived it. That was pretty good. There's a lot on our plate with a short stack, so good.
I'm surprised we got through it as fast as we did, to be honest
I
with
don't
you.
even know what's at 9:51. That's pretty late for us.
It is,
That's
but
good.
considering the, yeah.
Yeah. All righty.
We'll have to put in for overtime for tonight, Joe.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
See you
We
later.
get double time after 8.
Yeah,
Do we?
right, right. All
Take it
right,
easy,
thank you,
everyone.
guys. Have a
See you all.
good night.
Guys.
Thank you all.
Bye.